Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
Funny. Let's see. Here we go. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. A great pregame of somebody that I would say definitely right now is a big part of the Detroit is Different family. Big part of what Detroit is Different is doing. So last summer was the collard green cook-off, right? And that created such a buzz around the city. And the whole thing was who greens? Yo, I mean, I want to say, what was that? Like 60 pounds of greens was out like maybe in 45 minutes. And really, when we say 60 pounds of greens, we was probably serving them in like 4 to 5 ounce cups. So that means like, imagine that for all my people that was, street pharmacists back in the day, work that whole math out in your mind. You know what I'm saying? And it's a couple of them. You thinking, you got the number. Yes. That's how much that moved. 45 minutes, he was out. Because people was going back to his station like, I need some more of them greens. None other than Chef Buddah. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you for that. That was a dope day. I live it over and over. It lives rent-free in my head over and over and over.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious. You came in with like it was like the playoffs or something.
I was ready. Like, I'm always one of them cats that, like, especially if it's for something, even for myself, I always go in hard for some reason. Yeah. That's my MO.
So yeah, it was definitely like a playoff vibe. I was like, Buddah looking serious. He looking like Jordan in the he looking like Jordan against the Pistons or something.
That's on the regular because of the line of the type of things I do and the work I do.
That's what's up.
Just like you. I've never seen you without the ball in your hand.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. You know that look and that energy and that whole drive. So
yep.
That's what I love about like just who I am, to be honest.
And Buddha's being right because like it's so weird because I do have this very affable like online like podcast me, very funny, charismatic, but then it's a zone where things are coming together and people are almost like, damn, he don't even seem like the same person because I'm getting focused of all the things that need to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
You got to be that way.
Yeah. So with that, man, these always start with Detroit origin. You and your peoples. Who was the first person from your fam to be in Detroit? How far back did it go? What led y'all to get to the D?
Well, I know for a fact my grandmother's story pretty well.
Okay.
My grandfather's story, I know a little bit, but my grandma's originally from Alabama.
Whereabouts?
That part.
You don't know where?
Not really.
Okay.
But they was down there. It was like a while ago. So she moved up here as a young kid because her father had got in some trouble. Supposedly, my great uncles got into it with a white family where they was always playing and throwing rocks. So I think my uncle hit a white girl with a rock. She ran home and told her father. Her father chased my great uncle as a kid around in my great grandparents' house. Pulled him from up under the bed and put a blade to his neck and told him he was going to kill him if he ever hit his daughter again. So back in that day, my great-grandfather, his name was Nate. He was crazy. Like, he was on the crazy niggas that they talked about that cut a couple people up and, you know, had known that it could make people disappear. So they tried to keep it on the hush so he wouldn't find out because if he found out somebody did it to his son, he already was going to X him.
Yeah. So
he found out and the rest of the area found out supposedly that he found out. So all the other half was gathering up, and then all the black people was gathering up. Black people was gathering up to get money to ship his ass up north to Ohio because they knew they couldn't beat the white mob. Because they was like, oh, that's the Nate guy. We got to get this motherfucker. So long story short, the black people down there shipped him up to Ohio. From there, he migrated here and start working. They used to live actually on Gratiot and right where the police station at the old police station.
Okay.
Well, Hunt Street and Black Bottom. She always said she didn't stay in Black Bottom. She stayed across from Black Bottom.
Yeah.
That's all she used to say. But my grandfather is from Black Bottom. She met him after they migrated up here after my grandfather.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So like, even that story, that's such a commonplace story, so people kind of know the atrocities that people were facing during this whole Great Migration time. And it's not like they came to Detroit and weren't looking at racism. It was just a different dynamic of it. But that's the story of Coleman Young. That's the story of James Boggs. That's the story of Crazy Nate. You know what I'm saying? That
Exactly.
if you the amount of horrors just associated with whatever a white family would say, especially when you think about a young white girl at the time, and really even to this day, would nothing be scarier to me than like some young white girl saying I'm uncomfortable around me. It's like, oh man, that's gonna make me go down south. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And that's how it was.
So this so then up to like the east side, and then they meet. Whereabouts? What are they working? What are they doing? What's your grandma's day to day at the time?
She was a young girl, obviously. After my great grandfather moved up here, of course he sent for his family. And once they got here, I forgot, whatever he did, he made pretty decent money.
Okay.
Supposedly.
Okay.
And he had I think it was 6 of them. But my great grandmother ended up dying early. Wow. So my grandmother said she lost her when she was probably about 7 or something like that, or 10. So they was raised by a stepmother. So my grandma probably, I think, kind of hit the streets around 13, 14, just getting away.
Yeah.
And that's how she ran into my my grandfather.
Okay.
He stayed in Black Bottom. And she said that him and his family was like some beautiful chocolate men.
Hilarious.
Hilarious, right.
Hilarious.
But that's where she met him. And I think the rest is history, but they were a heavily connected family on my grandfather's side, the Calhouns.
Okay.
So yeah, they knew a lot of people. They did a lot of stuff. They was fairly always business minded.
Okay.
And stuff like that. So he ended up having quite a few children. From that came me. My grandma was a hell of a cook. I used to peep and watch a lot.
Were those recipes like from Alabama? Was it more so stuff that she just learned when she was here in Detroit, or just being creative in the kitchen?
Definitely from the South, because she, at an early age, she learned how to cook. Because back then,
you had to feed.
At 7 years old, man, I think you knew how to roast potatoes and clean chickens and all that kind of stuff.
And even I want to frame, like, people talk about like your grandma at 13, like 13 then isn't like 13 now. And I'm definitely not saying like, young people could do whatever at the time. But just due to the way society even functioned and the way people were outside, it wasn't like today.
No, you couldn't. A 13-year-old roaming Detroit city streets in today's world is suicide.
It would definitely not be.
It wouldn't be
then.
A good look.
Whereas now, I mean, then it was so commonplace. Like, we hear these stories, like Frederick Douglass, and all these stories are like teenagers, Booker T. Washington, and the stuff they was doing. And I mean, that's before your grandma era, but I'm just saying.
These guys were multi-geniuses, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that part. And I look at that a lot, too, where we at today compared to back in the day, where historically and on this side, in the western area, they try to promote that black people really didn't do anything and haven't done anything and just been lazy and just been slaves in general. When you look at the multi-geniuses, just about almost everybody back in the day that was a person of color was on multi-genius level.
You had to. I mean, when you really look at the history, I mean, even the quote-unquote, what they say, the settling of this nation, it was all black, as they call them, navigators. But it was the black people that knew the languages. It was the black people that ushered in the colonizers in a lot of ways, because they knew from the Moorish travel and everything. It was black people that completely knew the functionality of the plantation. So here we go. Y'all really want to frame this the right way? Is when I talk to people about this, and I didn't imagine I'd go here, but I like that I'm here now. But
right.
The industrial age has the connection for the public education that exists, because you have to turn the agricultural worker to an industrial worker, right? But on a plantation, if you run in the business of a plantation, that was all black people. That's who's farming. That's who knows everything that's going on, the science, the manufacturer, running the cotton gin and all that stuff. That wasn't white folks.
No.
This is like, so the reason for public education being so needed was because you had these large swaths of so many people that needed to learn. Hence, Tuskegee was building the foundation of what public education would be throughout the American South. So you had to have black people teaching these white people that was enslaving some of these same black people how to read so that now they can work in a factory.
Yeah. Still to this day, man. And, you know, that part is being covered up heavily right now, right?
Bro. And then they talk about it like we was lazy. I mean, we were always.
No.
I mean, all of the ingenuity of things like that and work in the foundation. But
that's across the globe too. So
yeah.
Here.
People of color.
Yeah. We we are like the agriculturalists, the scientists, the astrologists, and the nurturers of everything.
So in this same zone, bro. So from Black Bottom, your parents, what neighborhood were they at?
My mom them grew up in the Brewster Projects.
For real?
Yeah.
So not even that far from where Black Bottom was, just like down the street.
Yeah. Once everybody I guess was young adults and that they stayed in the Brewster Projects, and as children they called my grandmother by her first name, or they'd call her by her nickname.
Okay.
My grandmother's name was Alice,
mm-hmm.
but they always called her Al or Alice.
Mm-hmm.
And this was for years. Until one day I was like, why do y'all call? Because we always called her grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Why do y'all call grandma Alice and not mom or mother like most people?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, because we grew up in the Brewster Projects, and back then it was a lot of outside, so we would always be outside. So if somebody screamed out "ma," everybody mama would stick their head out the window.
Hilarious.
So back then, just about everybody in there had to distinguish which mama you was calling. So everybody's mother was called by their first name.
So you may be one of the first stories in all this time of Detroit is Different that talks a little bit about the culture of the Brewster Projects. The Brewster Projects, for people to know, is like one of the first public housing units in America. I want to say, who was it? Franklin Delano Roosevelt's wife came and like broke ground. And it's like a lot of history with the Brewsters.
Yeah.
Also, Joe Lewis's gym where he would box at was, he was boxing all around the city of Detroit for people to know, but that was one of the gyms he would box out of, and Ray Robinson, and just a lot of culture was inside the Brewsters. What would she tell you the stories of being in the Brewsters was like?
A lot of love, from what I can remember. Friendships was like, I think, key back then.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you think about it, if you were in a project, you were surrounded by a lot of people that's just like you. So they built a lot of great relationships. I know they always talked about friends. A lot of the stories they would talk about, it was always so many friends involved in these stories. And these friends had like interesting backgrounds, and they was like kind of like characters. So I think back then, as a child listening to how they grew up, it was always like kind of almost like Fat Albert. Like a bunch of colored people kind of like in a rural hood area, mobbing the streets and just learning life and living through how things was back then, And in the 80s, it was just like, wow, y'all did this.
So, and let me explain that. Okay, so the start of public housing and so many black people being in public housing, like places like New York, and through rap, we're familiar with a lot of that, especially if you listen to 90s rap. Oh, yeah. But if you watch Good Times or the animated Cabrini Greens in Chicago, Brewster's here in Detroit. It was actually a 80s movie, The Women's of Brewster's, that had like a lot of stars in it. The start of the projects was not what we saw as like the demise of those towers. You know what I'm saying? Like the start was filled with a lot of professionals and things like that, just due to the lack of access to housing for black people. So you would have musicians and artists and teachers and principals and, like different forms of life living in public housing. It wasn't just like.
Not one just for people with low income and people that's a little bit unfortunate.
Yeah.
Almost like a project to see how people could maneuver
mm-hmm.
and scramble around together and what comes out of it, which I think as a project in the way it's said from the government, it probably was a project. But I think on the ground level, it became a brewing pot for a super multicultural extravaganza in projects. Because, like you say, so many great and brilliant people came from that. You know, you wouldn't believe who used to live in the project. Even today, like you say, most rappers, like, they're like, I used to live in the projects, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was listening to like one of those interviews, like the same project where like Stephon Marbury family lived. It was like Ron Artest and then like
Oh, yeah.
Nas or some, you know what I'm saying? Like they was all like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like in that same center.
It birthed millionaires.
Yeah.
From the projects, which was supposed to probably potentially keep people on the same level where they stayed in the projects their entire life, right?
Yeah. So there, so Brewster's your OG grew up there.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm guessing that same zone, like what's happening with the Calhoun family as far as like what businesses, what moves they making?
I think my great grandfather ran a couple like shops. They were good into the mechanics and stuff.
Okay.
My grandfather, I know he was struggled with a lot of addictions. So I think by the time my grandmother and them moved into projects, that was to get away from him. Yeah.
I got you.
So yeah, but I think that happened early on because I think my grandma told me that one day she just walked away. She said she told him she was going to the store and she never went back. She said she left him in the house with 4 kids.
That was pre cell phone days.
She left him there with a newborn baby. My auntie, which was the youngest, she's the elder now. She said she left her. She said she's maybe 2 or 3 months old. She said she told him she was going to the store and she said she never went back.
So from this arc, yo come up. What does your mom get into? Like her life, her and pops. What are they doing for work?
So I think when they met in high school, Northern.
Northern?
Yeah, my mom and pops went to Northern together. My pops' family stayed in the area, and I guess obviously my mom did too, going to Northern. But yeah, from what I heard, it was a instant connection. You know, they got together, they created me, and shortly after that, it just dispersed. Yeah,
Okay,
it didn't work out.
I got you.
It didn't work out.
So that North End neighborhood for a moment, but not keeping on.
Yeah. My mom got into a lot of different stuff. My mom got into substance abuse pretty early in her life. Yeah, so that, like, I remember my mom vaguely as my mom because I was raised by my grandma. Yeah, so my mom, she kind of left early. I think one day she did the same thing. She's like, she couldn't handle it. So as a kid growing up, I would always hear people tell me, you know, your mom never really gave a fuck about you because if she did, she would have never walked away from you and a newborn. My little brother was just like maybe 1 year old. No, I think it was 3. He's 3 years old or something like that. So, but, you know, so imagine being a child and somebody constantly telling you that. Damn. And then every blue moon you run to your mom or she come, you know, she just chose the streets, but she still was in and out. And sometimes on the streets I would run into her, you know. Yeah. So this was being programmed into me, you know, even into a whole adulthood. I never really held it against her, but it was always there. Like, but then you look at addiction, man, that's something that's it's a sickness.
And I'm guessing it definitely is. And this often comes up. I don't know what drug and what era. Like, what are we talking?
The first, it was heroin. Yeah, I used to always see the needles and shit. I used to actually, as a young kid, I can remember when it first jumped off. But as I got older, the family member was like, nah, she was doing it way before then, before you start seeing it. But they're like, you got to realize you was a kid, so a lot of shit you didn't see until you got a little bit older and was like, oh, that's what this is. Yeah. So, yeah, I do remember seeing them shoot dope, her and her buddies. Like, and the fucked up part about it used to be a team of them, man. Back in the day, it's like if you was shooting dope and heroin, it was always at least 6 of y'all, always together.
I think as you talk about that, just like knowing and growing up in the hood, it's so unique that you speak about that because people talk usually on the show about like what happened with the crack era and people in their families that have struggled with crack addiction.
Oh yeah.
And
I'm a 70s.
Historically, when you look at life, what happened with heroin and even the methadone clinics in Black communities were so prevalent, and it's like I think that it was one key dynamic that changed with crack, and that was the fact that like the drug sentence, it made more sense for kids to get involved in it at a young age to make money. That was one of the key dynamics. But the drug trade, as you see, like, I mean, if you watch American Gangster, Frank Lucas and Nicky Barnes and all of them, that's heroin. And it was very prevalent in just what people were dealing with. A lot of the brothers that came back from Vietnam dealing with what that was, that depressant of what it is. And even we see it now with all of the depressant drugs, and I mean it plays out into the songs of the codeine and the and all of these drugs to like go down, these different mix of opioids, you know what I'm saying? These oxycodons and
it's still going on.
Percocets and you know what I'm saying?
This goes on, man. It's like stuff I've never even heard of.
Yeah, it's like it's the same as dope, hence that dope high. And the thing that's so unique for people that know, and you know, nowadays they'll say that boy, meaning like heroin is boy and cocaine is girl. But like for people on that boy, as they say, it's like they'll cut it in a way similar to that American Gangster movie where you'll go a particular way to get to that cut of heroin that you would want, but also chasing that high that would cut in a way where it would be so dangerous for somebody. It's the stories you hear from people that struggle with that addiction. That part of it, as you talk about being in groups of 6, is the where to get the good drug at, how to go about it. You end up with a social circle. It's who you always around. It's knowing when to get right to that edge, but not too far. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's cultural now, right? Like I grew up in like the dope culture, like everything, like especially as a young kid. Like I said, it started. I used to see the heroin thingy, and then they introduced smoking. No, they introduced freebasing.
Yeah.
Before crack, it was freebasing.
Yep.
So it was a whole chemistry type of vibe. You know what I'm saying? You had to like have alcohol, cotton swabs, the cocaine.
Yep.
Rock and smoke it yourself. You know what I'm saying? I used to see that all the time. You know, even peeking through peepholes or just people just smoke crack right in front of you. Right?
Wow.
Well, freebase, right?
Basing before
basing.
Yeah.
That's what the term base had come from. People used to be basing back in the day.
Yeah.
But then when crack hit the scene, that was a whole nother level. You just need a little pipe and a lighter, and that was it. And that just like turned everybody a little bit south. I remember that.
Yeah. It definitely. So also that means that you're a kid that grew up with a grandparent as a parent, which it's a movement of that. But it also means that a lot of those people, you're gonna have like some more old school values.
Oh yeah.
And how you move, because what's flying for moms ain't flying for grandmas when grandma is your parent.
Especially when grandma is already fly. You know, I think back then my grandma fairly still was young, you know, taking this on.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, imagine just being, you know, fly and just having to give up, you know, your own personal life and take on a whole nother group of kids and raise them yourself and sacrifice a lot, you know. Sacrifice not having a partner most of the time. And if you did, you know, you really didn't want them around the family. That was a concept my grandma used to always say. And I never understood it because I felt like if you raising 4 boys under one roof, maybe I think it was 5 of us at one point. It started off when she took me and my 2 brothers in, and then slowly but sure everybody just kind of fell in place.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was majority boys, you know. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like we did need a man in the house, someone other than what we was handed, you know, grew up with. So, but she, in her mind, said she didn't want nobody around us.
So were you one of the oldest or youngest?
I was the oldest in that house.
So you kind of took on and assumed a role
of
leadership even for everybody else.
Yeah. Even though it was like I felt like I didn't take the role on, it was always crowned me. You know what I'm saying? Even though me and 2 of my cousins were the same age, I'm only like 9 days older than my other cousin, a couple months older than the other one. Mm-hmm. But I was always looked up to as the lead, you know. Mm-hmm. And I hated that, but then at the same time, I think I had more common sense than most of everybody too. So it made sense. Yeah, but then I had 2 younger brothers.
I got you.
Yeah, but you know, we went through the struggle thing.
What neighborhood?
Dexter. My house literally was on Dexter.
Dexter and what?
Hazelwood.
Whoa.
Right on the corner.
Right in the mix of it all.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. The house is on the corner. It's not there no more. But yeah, I know all about YBI.
I was gonna say, man, I went to Northwestern, and in my set dudes I ran with was Dexter and Carter. So Dexter and Hazelwood is like, I knew that location, man.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know?
right there. And then from there, we moved to Dexter and Atkinson. Right there, right off of Joy Road.
Yeah, I was going to say, so y'all moved basically down.
Right down the street.
Down the way.
Yeah, maybe 4 blocks down.
Yeah, I was going to say, near a Coney Island where, boy, it's one of it's an infamous Coney Island. You know what I'm saying? But
I remember that Coney Island
neighborhood, man,
forever. Because it used to be one Coney Island, then they changed it to 8 Eagles, and then it's been that forever. But yeah, I grew up in that Coney Island. I done seen it all in that Coney Island, man, from fights to stabbings, murders.
Yeah, man, I done seen some wild stuff in that Coney before too. Like to the point where I remember, man, rest in peace, my homegirls, like, little cousin got shot in that Coney, and I was like, she was like, he was in Coney on Joy and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
If he don't know people in that hood,
or you know people and they catch you in there, that's the thing. It got wild, man. At the while. So you know.
So yeah, so that neighborhood in what era?
The 80s.
Oh man, that neighborhood in the 80s is so unique, man. And that's why I also shout out Jesse Brown. You know, Jesse Brown had his health food shop like right across the street, like late 80s, early 90s, and doing it right there. It's like, whoa, bro.
Over on Dexter?
Mo Power. Yeah, man, right there across the street where the corner store was.
Mm-hmm.
He had like a shop off because, you know, it's like a little plaza corner store place. That's where his health food shop was, where he was selling the Dick Gregory and all the other stuff.
Oh,
man.
wow.
I know. So it's like, to do it there, boy, you was really in the heat of the fire and engaging black folks.
Yeah, I grew up all over that area. Like Dexter, Linwood. I went to Central, Durfee, Brady. Knew people from just about everywhere. Northern, Northwestern, Cass. And we basically knew that area pretty well, all the way from here to Finkel.
That's so funny because so for people that aren't from Detroit watching this, Dexter is one of those like notorious streets, quote unquote, of like just a lot of black culture, but like you could definitely say hood culture, but it's also was businesses there, like a lot of different dynamics of Detroit pour into Dexter and Linwood, but Dexter specifically is so unique because unlike a lot of other major streets in the city of Detroit that have a freeway exit, Dexter doesn't have a freeway exit, but it's a very known street, almost to the point where people be like, oh, he from Dexter, and it's like, oh, you gonna run away or whatever, but Dexter's also the place of the Broad Street Parade. Dexter's like the place of the Dexter Amherst Center. Dexter's the place back where the car wash used to be. Like, it just was a lot of culture on Dexter. Like,
yeah, a lot of black-owned businesses used to be on Dexter. You had the Murder Burger. You had, I think it was a place called Maud's. Used to fry fish like Dexter in Boston.
Yep.
They had a Masonic temple there. It was cultural, man.
Yeah.
And it was very family-orientated because, like I said, we knew that whole area, but everywhere we went, you know, we had eyes on us. You know, I couldn't do too much because it would get back. And that's what I loved about growing up in the 80s. It was always like you had your little wild times to wild out, but at the same time, you had to put a cap on that shit because if somebody saw you and they got back to your house before you did.
Especially, I'm imagining your grandma was one that wasn't playing it, so she probably knew everybody. So
yeah, everybody knew my grandma, and that's the thing too. And my uncle, he was one of those people. He was a street cat. But also very known too, right? So we got street cred based off of him because they knew we was Lil Jon's nephews and all that. Yeah. So yeah, he was. And then once upon a time, he used to take us around with him. We walk with him, mob the streets. Now that I think about it, now I don't know what he was doing, but we always with him. We would walk. That's how I know the neighborhood so well. He walked from, like I said, we walked from Dexter and Hazelwood to Schoolcraft in Wyoming one day.
Wow.
Yeah, had us. We was mad.
That's a long walk.
Yeah, selling merchandise and stuff like that. He's a hustle, but he still had that little gangster in him. But he used to take us around like places where he knew we would end up, and let us hang with him. And people would see us, and he'd be like, "Hey man, you know what this is?" They'd be like, "No." He's like, "This is my nephew." They're like, "Oh, okay, what's up, nephew?" Just letting them know, like, if you mess with him, you go have to come through me.
That's
in other
dope.
words, yeah.
That's
So
dope.
we mobbed around a lot. We had a lot of friends and all that, but. It was cultural. Like I said, we had family all over, man.
Let me ask you this, because I'm a Northwestern guy, and I chose Northwestern because we moved over to Russell Woods, and I knew if I would have went to Central, which would have been my neighborhood school, I've been running into all the people from like Linwood all day, but they have to cross Dexter.
Exactly.
So I chose Northwestern. Why did you choose Central instead of Northwestern? Because it seemed like NO would have been your school.
Yeah, the Dexter bus rolled past my house my whole teenage life. So I could have easily jumped on the Dexter bus and got dropped off at Northwestern.
You could have walked over to Northwestern, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but my grandma worked at Central.
Ah.
Yeah, she was a custodian there for many years, man. She actually retired from the Board of Health. Detroit Board of School. But yeah, she went there, so it was imminent. So I was kind of like, they knew I was coming before I even came.
So yeah, even going to Central was not the crazy Central experiences of something.
Yeah, actually Central was pretty tough, man. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I ain't getting into no physical confrontations, but just in there in general, dealing with all that gang. Because by that time, this is the 90. You know, gang culture was seeping in pretty heavily. So you had NFL, Dexter Dogs, 12th Street, PA. You name it, the list goes on.
Yeah,
they always crammed up in.
Yeah, like the reason why I went to Northwestern, which Northwestern had a lot of street.
Yeah, they did.
But I felt like that's a different group of Dexter, because that's the other thing. I mean, to me, at Joy Claremont, that's a different Dexter than
once you go from
other side of Dexter. Yeah, because
you ain't lying, man.
The central side of Dexter is a different Dexter, you know. And I ain't saying that the dudes on the other side of Dexter is like...
That was just as nuts, too. But I think,
it just was a different culture, you know.
Yeah, I think in Northwestern, I think everybody was kind of like on a vibe togetherness, almost. Like if it was gang, that gang was affiliated.
Yeah.
In Central, everybody was beefed out with everybody. Yeah, that was the only issue.
Yeah, and NFL, for people that know, like my street, niggas from Linwood, like, you know. You would see NFL almost spray painted everywhere.
Everywhere.
Like, wow, people really like football over here.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
All over the city. Not just on Linwood. NFL was spray. I remember years ago, I forgot what it was. I think it was a concert. And the NFL niggas pulled us so deep, and they all had NFL shirts on. And they jumped out of U-Hauls and everything. It was nuts.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, and I mean, shout out so that's why when shout out Big Herc and like Rock Bottom, like when Rock Bottom came out, and I'm a kid, but I just knew the energy and the feel of like that's our hood, like 12th Street.
Oh yeah,
Linwood, Dexter, like
it birthed some MCs. I tell you that much, yup.
So during this whole movement after Central, where you at?
I went to school. Well, I did a couple college things. Didn't work. It didn't work out. I went to like a junior college. Mm-hmm. I was always trying to pursue something. That was my mindset.
Okay.
And I was like, I gotta get a higher education. So I ended up joining Focus Hope Machinist Training Program.
Oh man! So you stayed still like in the same footprint.
I was right. I used to walk to Focus Hope from the crib. By this time, we had moved like off Dexter and Lawrence and Calvert area.
Okay.
Over up in there, so
y'all stay at you and Dexter is like Dexter. You like cashed out with Dexter, like
Dexwood,
it's
man.
with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
From that, high school I stayed off Calvert and Linwood.
Okay.
Through my whole high school life, but then after that, I stayed off of Dexter and Lawrence.
Okay.
But long story short, I went to school for machinist training, wanted to be an engineer and all that kind of stuff. Went through a couple of programs.
So let me frame that up for people. So in my same neighborhood, is Focus Hope, which is a huge nonprofit. At one point in time, it was like the annual budget was, a couple $100 million. Like,
oh yeah,
huge nonprofit that began after the rebellion through Father Cunningham and one of my OGs, Eleanor Jositis. I had like a real friendship with Eleanor Jositis. Now, how she took me in as a mentee when I was way more rough around the edges then.
She took a lot. She was rough. And that's the thing.
She
didn't play no joke.
Yeah, she wasn't.
So she can deal with you.
Yeah. And
then love on you to the point where you like, oh my God.
Yeah, I Eleanor was one of my big homies, and
shout out.
Focus Hope Focus Hope started as an organization feeding people, and because, and it's sad that this is still a problem, a lot of the grocery stores in my neighborhood were selling spoiled meat and bad vegetables and things like that. Father Cunningham was the priest at the Madonna Catholic Church that's right there across the street from Focus Hope. So it starts as a food program, and then slowly but surely, Father, as Eleanor used to tell me, he had like all these visions of like, we can train people and we can do this and we can do that and we can like. And Eleanor kind of was like, all right, calm down. Let's try to figure out how we put this on paper. And it built relationships to the point where at one point in time, building more relationships of continuing to do some of the work, they built relationships with the big three to do manufacturing. So almost every sitting president, like, well, at least I know, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama. I mean, Kamala Harris just gave some address there. Like, it's a huge nonprofit where other nonprofits learn from it. Now, it's definitely not as large as it once was at one point in time, but one of the big things that made it huge was the machinist program that you were talking about.
Yeah, that was huge. They did, growing up in Detroit, you had Focus Hope in your cabinets, no matter where you was at,
Oh, and
That's another thing. We Focus Hope fed thousands to tens of thousands of people in the city. I remember standing in line as a child, going to get a basket and shopping in Focus Hope, and the food was free. And it wasn't that bad. Everybody know about them grilled cheese. They's a slap. So
yeah.
That I went there and didn't work out. So with them, if you went through anything, and whether it was for machinist training or jobs or working, doing anything, they would always reach back out and say, hey, so what you got going on? So after I didn't go through the whole program with the engineering, I kind of was just like doing odd jobs, here and there.
Like pimp work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I kept it moving, I tell you that much. I never did sit down. So I got a call from them. They're like, what you got going on? I'm like, well, I'm doing this. And they're like, well, we're opening up a cafe, and, there's quite a few positions in there. You should go have an interview with the chef. And, we went in and talked. They hired me instantly. You did the whole learning the kitchen thing. And, I was probably a whiz at it,
So you were there when, I know Focus Hope because I've done events there. And like I said, Eleanor was my big homie. So you were there when they expanded and added the whole kitchen then.
Yeah, we was the first. I was one of the first people to step foot in the kitchen when it opened. We opened it, back in the day. It was called the Enterprise Cafe because the way the doors open, like the doors on the Enterprise Starship.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, So when the facility was first opened, I don't know when in the 90s, but it was completely like new, dynamic, like the motion censoring and all of that stuff, but a huge commercial kitchen.
Oh, man. Beautiful. Nice. The cafe, the whole building, like you say, was fire. Like for me to get in the building, it scanned my palm. That's the only way I can get in. That's how dope that was back in the day. This is like 92 or something like that.
So it was far, like, yeah. It was like, whoa.
Yeah. So that was fire. No, actually, this had to be 93.
But still.
Yeah, back then, that's just like, wow.
And then in the hood, too. Like
in the hood. I used to walk to work, man, from the crib. So that was very convenient. So, they hired me in there doing pots and pans and dishes and stuff, and threw me on the grill one day. They were shorthanded or something, and I used to just make the breakfast food. And it just became a niche. And I started asking for the cook a little bit more stuff. So I started my cooking career there.
So before that, were you even tinkering around in the kitchen?
Just at home. I was finna to go be a fireman. That was my goal. So I started there a little bit.
Okay.
But my whole goal was to go through the fireman program and all that. So I think I was there. I don't know how long I was there. But my son was born while I was working there. So that was in 94. He was born in November. And I remember I worked there a couple more months after that. And I went from there to work for a Hudsons restaurant in Northland on the third floor.
Oh man, he took me back to another.
Yeah, if anybody remember that
cultural place. Let me tell people. All right, so, all right, Macy's is what it became, but Hudsons was a huge department store in the city of Detroit to the point where they're redeveloping the original Hudsons and the Hudson site. I don't remember that because I was too I wasn't born yet.
I remember.
I do remember Hudsons in Northland, and Hudsons in Northland was like a whole experience. Like the first floor was like furniture, and you could get like valet parking, and there was this place where you could get these cookies. My mom would sometimes get us.
They had a marketplace down there on the first floor too. Cookies, you name it, sandwiches. It was fire.
Yeah. And then like the second floor would be like clothes, and the third floor was like its whole other world of like you said, the restaurant, and sometimes events would be up there.
Yeah.
It was like you had the mall Northland, which was America's first mall. And then inside of Northland, you got Hudson's for like a whole nother experience of like.
The whole Hudson's was like, you can get it all.
Yeah.
You can spend a whole day in there.
Yeah.
Have lunch and, take a snack with you, and clothing and furniture and appliances. Whatever.
Yeah.
Fur coats.
Yeah.
Hudson's is all right.
So you go from one like big cultural thing to also like it's not just Hudson's, but it's Hudson's in Northland, which is another big cultural thing. And then this is like the 90s.
Yeah, this is like 94, 95.
So 90s Northland was also like a whole...
Oh, man. It was fire. We still had Sam Goody. You can go actually buy CDs and cassettes back then, if anybody know what those are.
So, and then just working there, like, people just want to come up there, I'm assuming, and hang out. Cause
everybody, and the way to get into the Hudson's restaurant, it was kind of like a swinging door once you got out the elevator. So the homies would just go back there, knowing they ain't supposed to be back there, and peek in, like, what up, though?
Hilarious.
I'd be on the line cooking, that's how I used to be. But the land was like, it was very cultural, man. You seen it all at Northland.
Yeah.
I enjoyed working there, Working at Focus Hope, I worked on a good chef. I learned a lot of stuff, and I learned the basics and the dynamics, the do's and don'ts at Focus Hope. And then once I went to Hudson's, I learned techniques and how to be a little bit more fancy. They had a menu that would rotate every 2 weeks. So we constantly was learning stuff, and then you had to sit like in little seminars and look, and the chefs would put their own food displays on to show you how they want it. Had to look like this when it went out. No exceptions, make sure the stations. So I learned all that prep, setting up stations, cleaning shrimp, knife techniques, grilling. It was just like it kept going and going. So,
what do you think was like the thing that connected you to food so much?
I think once I had, I would say my coworker back then, which is like my brother now, a guy named Zedrick Hill. He was a older guy. Not too older. We're not that old from afar, but he's a little bit older.
Gonna be watching this like, I ain't that much older than you.
No, but I met him at Focus Hope. And he was like a professional chef type of guy. Like, that was his thing. His career was chefing, so he was my man. He was always in my ear. He like, oh man, you sweet with that, man. Like, he was always bigging me up and was like, you should just consider this. This is more you, man. I can see you doing this. He was into catering stuff. My very first catering gig I did with him. He was just...
When was it and where was it?
Man, it was for some Jewish folks. I think it was something like a birthday, but not quite a birthday. This kid was being honored for something. I know what it's called, but it's just slipping.
A bar mitzvah?
It was something... Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Okay.
And it was over... I forgot where out, man. But we drove. I had a raggedy Camaro, man. It's a 1980 Camaro. And they bought everything. All we had to do was cook it and show up and cook.
Wow.
They had a kitchen and everything, so all we had to do was come in, clean the chicken, and do the vegetables.
Ain't had a catering gig like that since. I'm just messing.
No. Everything got to come out of this now. Yeah, people do offer that though now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they've done it. I've done it. I pulled up places and just grilled it.
But it's probably better to pick,
Oh yeah, get my own stuff. Zedrick pulled me in, like, changed my thinking of what I should be doing in life, even though I still went and took the fireman test to be a fireman.
So this is going Northland and everything, and now it's hitting the kid getting a little bit more grown, but you're also getting creative. When do you start, like, do you go back to the crib and, like, are trying new recipes and stuff? Like, when do you start, like, developing your style with this?
I think then I started it because for some reason I felt like I had to learn recipes, because being in the mode of doing recipes every 2 weeks at Hudson's got me in the mode of looking up different recipes all the time, because I wanted to present them and say, hey, let's try this out.
And this is like pre-internet being so prevalent. So what are you getting the recipes from?
Buying a lot of cookbooks, going through magazines and all those books, reading them like heavily, learning stuff, and writing them down too, mixing stuff. I was always like, I'd take one part from one recipe from another book and from another page and fusion them and try to do stuff and go back to work. Because at Hudsons, they gave you the ability to freestyle and do whatever you wanted. You know, even if it's not for sale, but for yourself to eat. You know, we was very creative. And I was working with a couple cats that would, you know, we would swap stuff. Back then, I was still eating meat. So, yeah, we would create a lot of stuff. So that was like my love for the art. But later down the years, I kind of got a little institutionalized. I went to work at where did I go, man? I think I went to the hotel, the Ren back when it was the old school hotel.
When it was the Westin?
The Westin. I worked for the Westin. I worked at the Summit, all the way at the top.
I know what you're talking about.
Summit
Man, you've almost been to like through food. You've traveled through so many like staples in Detroit culture too.
I worked with a lot of dope people too. All these places that I worked, I was fortunate to work with people that were so artsy and creative and took a liking to me and was like, oh man, try this out. Like I learned how to really decorate at Hudsons, and then it just from there it sprouted. But at the Westin, it was a whole nother ball game, bro. These was like you had multiple chefs, like executive chefs. Like you had executive chef for the bistro, executive chef for the whole building, executive chef for pastries, chef for the grilling and all that. It was back then it was multiple restaurants to eat at in the Ren.
So let me explain this era, because I'm thinking this is like maybe like late 90s.
This has got to be 97, 98.
Yeah, like, so the Summit, for people that, all right, Renaissance Center is that tower, you may think of it as GM or whatever, but the signature building downtown Detroit, like you'll see it off the water, like if most people, even to Detroit is different, signal and signs, like the Renaissance Center is the building. Along with that, at the time when it was the Westin Hotel, the Summit restaurant was like one of the premier high-end like executives come in there. Like after the auto show, I can only imagine the auto show and the Summit was like buzzing. Like, you know what I'm saying? All types of those executives.
The day was the fireworks day.
Because it was so high up.
It was right
people
there.
wanted to look at the fireworks.
We was right. This like the fireworks was right there, man. That was awesome.
About that.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know, this is, you know, that's high-end Detroit too. So I can imagine now you're in one of those kitchens where it's like, whoa.
Oh yeah, it's on. It's so much tension and so many egos.
Yeah.
It's gorilla, you know, people just banging their chests. That's when I realized like, oh, this is like almost competitive, but not competitive because we all work for the same people. But back then, it was a lot of different attitudes, I met a lot of different people.
So in a space like that, just in comfort, because at spaces like that, I assume there's so many people that go through like those like high-end culinary schools and all of that, and you is kind of got it out the mud.
Yeah.
How did you find your comfort next to like people that may have been in school on pastries for like 4 or 5 years? You know what I'm saying?
Just actually learning and looking kind of like Michael Jackson looking over Stevie Wonder's shoulder as he's producing. So like I say, I was privileged to work with and be around so many dope people. And at the same time, like then, as I look at it back then, now I was kind of adding to my style. You know, I was pinching off this, pinching off that, checking it out, knowing how to grill, how to make stuff medium, how to make it rare, how to make it well. Listening to chefs, you know, looking at the knife techniques, you know, dealing with swordfish and shark and fresh tuna and all that. It was just it's almost like I went to school, but I did.
Yeah.
Right. And like I say, it was multiple levels of chefs at the Westin. And that was good. So back then, well, me, everywhere I go, I get along with everybody. I don't care if it is. You can be the most rottenest person in the world. You might find a liking to me, you know. So a lot of people that didn't like each other, you know, I was always neutral. I worked with a guy, he was from Jamaica. He's very aggressive, but didn't nobody mess with him too much. He didn't mess with too many people. But he loved the mess out of me, you know what I'm saying? We ended up being buddies outside of that. And learning from him and listening to the stuff he said he cooked and the things like that. And being in that competitive vibe, I always stood back and watched. Like this person going hard on that. I see what he doing. He gonna spruce it up with something else and do that. And I'm watching. I'm taking notes. While the other cat, like, doing the salmon and grilling that, sprucing up. Because, with the summit, you had a half an hour to get your ticket out. When the ticket came in for a table, we needed to get it out a half an hour after we got that ticket. Mind you, we got about 70, 80 tickets. Each one got to be out from 30 minutes when it came in. So I learned how to mathematically push stuff out timely right when it's supposed to go out, because they wanted people to come in from the part where they sat down and get a full 360 of the city, because, the restaurant
Spun
around in one circle. So by the time they came back to where they originally sat, the food would be coming right out at that point. So that was pretty dope. We had challenged on that. The chef used to be on us. When you call in the line, you watching it. Buddah, how we looking on that swordfish? How we looking on the grill? How the lamb coming? I learned that whole type of vibe you see when you see on TV now with Hell's Kitchen and all that. When people, that's real life. That's not like for TV. When I look at that, I say I don't miss that at all.
So after that, where do you go?
From the West End, I get institutionalized. I go to Detroit Medical Center. I'm working at Sinai Hospital back, and it was next door to was that the Renaissance High School?
Yep.
So I started working at Sinai, and when I get there, a lot of stuff was made from scratch, but a lot of stuff was coming out the box because we did a lot of patients, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say hospital food
galore, and we work. I used to work in the cafeteria too, so I would do the grill stuff and work on the line. So that was a pretty dope experience, man, because I got to see a lot of physicians, a lot of nurses, a lot of all kind of people from all over the world. And working with a full functioning, like that was like almost working at the plant, because they had the assembly line where they would put the food on the trays, put the trays in the big hot boxes, and the runners would run everything up on the floors and distribute it to each patient. So I got into that whole lifestyle. Then they had a freezer in there called the Blast. It was so cold, if you stayed in there longer than you should, you would get frostbite.
Whoa.
Because we would mass manufacture so much food and so many trays. I think we would do like 3,300 meals a day.
Whoa.
On top of the 3,300, we were doing the push out the same day too at the same time.
Wow.
So you had to freeze so many, that way you had them for the next day.
Yeah.
But yeah, they would put on these big racks and push them in this huge freezer. The freezer was probably 20 by 20 feet. And it's just full of food, but it was cold, man. It had these huge fans that would blow air. And I was like, man, I've never seen nothing like this in my life. We used to go in there, and when you go in there, there's these huge Eskimo type of coats hanging on the rack next to the door. You got to put one of those on before you go in. And some days we just put those in there and just go in there and chop it up. Just be doing it because it was cool. But yeah, so I learned a lot of stuff there, but at the same time, I was losing a little of the edge because
of the creativity.
Because it was the same stuff, basically. Yeah. So I stayed there for a minute. I think when I look back at it, I think I should have stayed there. But from there, this is when the creativity just goes supernova. I run into, one of my buddies he was a waiter, so he's working for a catering company. He's like, we looking for a couple cooks, man. I told my boss you cook. So she told me next time we come to work this Thursday to bring you. I'm like, where's that? He said, we working at the African World Museum down there catering and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, that's dope. So I go down there, get my little chef gear up. That day I couldn't cook because it was slump. So they needed me to help out on dishes, like my very first day.
Wow.
So I'm doing dishes with this ghetto fabulous cat, man. He was my man's too. I worked with him for a little bit, and then he disappeared. He went over and did something else.
Yep.
But he was ghetto. He did everything backwards, man, when it came to doing dishes, dog, and I hated it. But
hilarious.
they threw me in on there. We got the spot clean. I got to know him. He was telling me everything about everybody. And I finally meet the boss. She came in, but she was busy. She spoke, greeted me, and told me she's glad I came. She said, I apologize. I got you doing dishes. But we just so messed up. And I'm like, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? I was just checking the vibe. And I was looking at the food. The spread was fire, right? So I'm like, oh, shit. Okay. This is what we doing. And her name was Joanne Greer. She ran the Brown Bag.
Brown Bag Catering. Another staple of Detroit culture. One of their offices right there off Hamilton in the hood. And then traveled other places. But Brown Bag Catering, if you had, for a long time, like, I would say maybe like definitely like the 90s through the 2000s. If you were at an event that had more than 100 black people, where it was probably like $100 a plate, you probably was having some some brown bag.
Yeah.
We
did a lot for a lot of prestigious people, man.
Yeah.
I used to hang out at Don Barton's house in his kitchen cooking for them, catering, golf course, all the judges, all the politicians, Kwame Kilpatrick back when he first jumped on the scene, Jug Strong, all of them.
So like under this is like the first time you kind of hop in more in the lane of entrepreneurial spirit and seeing. Did you pick up some game from them about how to go about it?
Not really. So I'm working at the DMC, and then
just kind of picking up a gig or two from Brown Bag.
Yeah, we doing like most weekend they slap man, this is the Brown Bag in the '90s, right?
Yeah,
and heading on to the 2000s. So they that people, they doing it. Actually, they were locked in at the African World Museum as the house caterer. Yeah. So and back then the museum was fairly still new.
Yeah,
anybody was throwing events there. We threw like some of the dopest galas, and like I say, I was there with, a lot of good people, man. A lot of politicians and a lot of police, a lot of judges, and that's when I'm back in the zone, cooking, being creative. They throwing me on shit. They're like, "Oh, you can cook? Okay, we're gonna need this, we're gonna need that." They show me one thing. What I loved about John and Joanne, they showed you first, and then do what you do after that. This how we want it though. But if you can do, add something extra, do it. So, that's how I learned. I made, they showed me how to make gumbo. But mind you, I went vegetarian in 97. So I wasn't really eating meat at all. So I could never eat the gumbo. But I used to see how people used to just rave about the gumbo. Like they would go crazy over it, right? And a lot of the stuff, but the gumbo was that hit. And I'm like, damn, they like, man, you should try, man. Your little sausage ain't gonna hurt you, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, no, I can't mess with it. So as I'm learning how to make that, in my head, I'm tweaking how to make it a vegan version for myself. So, that was, I think we had a good ride. And then I went on to work for the Capuchins.
So the Capuchin Kitchen, whole nother spin, whole different look. East Side.
Oh, yeah.
Steeped up in it. Catholic institution,
Yeah.
but like for real, like it's some black folk up in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's like Focus Hope all over again.
It is.
But just on the east side.
And actually feeding people hot meals every day except I think Sunday or something like that. That was a ride too, man. Working for them was I think probably was the biggest blessing in my life today, besides my children and my granddaughter.
All right. Explain what it was like going over there and how you kind of got your foot in that space.
So I was working, like I say, for the DMC and the Brown Bag at one point, to the point where the Brown Bag was growing. So they opened up a spot called the Brown Bag 2, what was that? Trey Wynn's liquor store on Livernois, right?
Yep.
And they were like, well, you can run the kitchen.
Wait. Time out. Another great staple of Detroit culture.
Yeah.
You like a Detroit, just the places where you've done food. And that also tells you that food and Detroit culture is so hand in hand. So
it is.
So, all right, to say a liquor store is classic, I know y'all thinking like, what? Huh?
Yeah, Trey Wynn's, man.
Trey Wynn's liquor store on Livernois is like, and it's had many different people that have run the catering spot in there. I forgot my man's name. He was at the Collard Green Cook-Off, but my homeboy loved that dude's pasta and stuff. Sometimes he be at Trump's Gentleman's Club. I forget the brother's name, but he was running up out of there. But like the catering spot is classic, but Trey Wynn's liquor store is just like a known like liquor store. Like if it makes any sense.
Wine galore, like any kind of wine, liquor you can get. You can definitely go there and they might have it.
Yeah.
Guaranteed, actually.
Across the street from basically UAD.
Yeah. That area, nice area too. Not that far from where Don Barton and all them stayed. Yeah. So I would see him on a regular coming in Trey Wynn's.
Hilarious.
Buying food from us and sometimes just getting liquor and all that, hanging out. A lot of people. That area, who else stayed over there?
I mean,
quite a few
when
people.
You think about like that Bagley Fitzgerald community, and it's sort of like the University District and Sherwood Forest, not that far away.
Not that far.
Palmer Woods is like,
and Trey Wynn's is that spot.
Yeah, trade winds. So this is like pre what's happening on the Avenue of Fashions in Livernois now. Like that's back when the Avenue of Fashions was really like the Avenue of Fashions, because the only other food you have to go all the way over to Baker's, which
Right.
Baker's, I still build with Baker's. I need to get over there.
Peace out to them.
But, you know, it wasn't like a lot of food up and down Livernois.
No.
That wasn't like fast food.
No.
But Trade Winds was.
Yeah. Yeah. We said we was there. That when I got my first taste of like running a spot myself.
Yourself. Okay.
Yeah. Doing everything from the prepping, the cooking, to setting it up, steam tables, making everything from scratch, coming up with, you know, specials every day. Because it was just me and my man Marlon. We was running it. And from there, you know, it worked out, but it was just like it was no benefits. You know, I actually left the DMC to go work for them full time because they was paying me more money. I was making in 1 week what I was making in 2 weeks at the DMC.
Yep.
So it made sense financially then, but when I look back, like I'd have been at the DMC probably over 20 plus years.
Yeah.
You know, I could retire, you know, something nice with that pension. But, you know, that's being grown and looking back. You know, you can't change. But I love where I'm at now.
So from there, Capuchin Kitchen, how does that connect?
So I left the brown bag in search of something a little bit more stable for the kids because I needed benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of places was reaching out and, you know, went a lot of interviews, probably worked some spots once or twice for like one day and didn't feel it and was like, straight. So I get a call. My wife was like, you know, she was really pushing the resumes and was like, you know, trying to figure out where I can work. And when her friends told her about the Capuchins and they was looking for a chef. And I shot the resume and all that, went through the whole online thing. I think back then, the online thing was becoming something.
Yeah.
So at that point, that's how I got with them. And I went for the interview. I was like maybe the seventh person they interviewed that day or something like that. And they was like, well, you know, we interviewed a lot of people. We really don't know. We're going to fill it out. You know, if you don't hear nothing about tomorrow, we probably went with somebody. You know, they was blunt with it. And I was like, okay, it's cool. And I walked out and they called like not too long after I left, like, yeah, we're going to go with you, you know, see how you work out. And started working there. And I get a whole whirlwind, man, of my whole reality and existence, to be honest, when I'm working there. So this is the very first time I'm in a spot where it's like a good 100 people in there that's very unfortunate, you know, looking to us to feed them, you know, small children, people with substance abuse, a lot of people with mental illness, a lot of the working poor, and just a lot of people that's just down and out and mentally not there. And me being me, if anybody know me, I got a huge heart, you know. I almost feel people pain sometimes. So being in there humbled me, you know. I worked for like a week and I learned the system and, you know, and seeing how people stood in line with their pride and ate and waited for us to feed them. And some people would come up and ask for seconds and they were like, well, we really don't give out seconds, but, you know, sometimes we do. So it's up to, you know, how much food we got and this and that. And I'm like, okay, wow. So I'm learning the do's and don'ts and how to watch out for this. You know, a lot of fights used to break out in there. A lot of drug use is going in the bathroom. You know, stuff you wouldn't believe went on in that soup kitchen. But the culinary part at this point kind of beefs up drastically. I'm cooking for 1,200 people a day now. You know, I'm using big industry stuff, big kettles, using the ovens constantly, doing some numbers, man. You know, most of the time by myself, but they still had a team. So I would work the evening shift. I did the dinner. And so this is basically the time young people are coming in now because they're out of school. And that spot had a children's program. You know, I met a lot of young people, man, that was going through stuff. A lot of people were brilliant. And with that program, a lot of the kids who didn't eat there went to that program too because it's a great after-school program. They learned computers, how to read. They had a library. They had arts and crafts. It was a bunch of stuff culturally crammed into a program for children at the school at the soup kitchen on Connors.
This is where you meet my homie Sterling.
Yep, Sterling's. I met Marsha Lee first though. Do you know Marsha Lee? Shout out to the homie Marsha Lee. Marsha Lee was heavily with Grace Lee. Marsha Lee worked for the Capuchins too. She did like a volunteer. No, she did like she was a coordinator for young people that came through Cap Corps, which is kind of like Job Corps, but it's like for Capuchins, like Catholic children would come from all around the world, whatever the case, and volunteer a couple years of their life. to helping with the programs that we did, feeding and clothing people and all that. So I met Marsha Lee, I think, at like a business type of what do they call those, staff day. We had a staff day, and I ended up sitting next to Marsha Lee, and we just hit off, man. We were just talking. She had a huge heart just like I did, and she's like, "You might like I got a friend. You remind me of, his name is Sterling. I want y'all to meet."
Hilarious.
Yep. So she's to come and do stuff with the children program too, I think. And somehow they did the art. Oh yeah, it was an art studio. So that's how Sterling came into play. She brought him in to teach art one day, and then one day we were just in the kitchen chopping. I had everything done as far as getting people fed. And we went into like one of the offices, and me, him, and her sat there, I think, for like 40 minutes, man.
Yeah.
And it was just chopping it. And I'm like, man, this cat is dope as hell, man.
Yeah.
And she like, I told you. And we exchanged numbers. And he was coming there on a regular because he was teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And we just became buddy. And I was into the hip-hop thing back then.
Yeah.
So he was like, I'm an artist and I'm also a music producer too. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, yeah, we got some shit, So slid him a couple CDs. He's like, oh, man, that shit hot, right? Mm-hmm. So he's like, man, y'all should come to the studio, you and your bros. And we did a lot of songs of Sterling Heights.
That's cool.
Yeah, we did a lot. We heard a lot of shit that wasn't dropped, you know what I'm saying, that he was putting together.
A lot of, it'd be like that.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that's out in the world now. We heard it first, we heard it was like getting pieced together and was before it was mixed down and all that. Heard your shit. Sterling is one of those cats that's heavily, he's just music himself. So he put me up on a lot of people, especially locally.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. That's
Sterling, bro right there.
Yeah, Sterling's family. That's how I know Buddah a couple of times over. So that definitely connected everything.
Let me tell you how I know you.
All right, let's go.
Years ago, a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, was on my brother. He passed away, right?
Rest in peace.
Yeah, his name was Wiusi Olusola.
Ah, that's my guy, man.
Yeah, Wiusi passes away, unfortunately, man. That was my bro. Me and him did a lot. That's a whole nother chapter of my life I skipped past. Yeah, me and him, we met Dr. Kwaku Ando. We learned about the cosmic prophecy. We spent time in Atlanta at Alamtina, which is One World Healing Center. Yeah. We did nature walks. We communicated with the plant. Dr. Kwaku Ando was a shaman from Ghana, but he was also the world's leading ethnobotanist at the time we met him. There was nobody above him when it came to plant life. He spoke to the plants. He was just like George Washington Carver.
George Washington Carver, yeah.
Yeah, and his center on the land where he lived was the George Washington Carver Center.
Wow.
We went there, and we was learning very, very powerful stuff, man, spiritual stuff, plant stuff, learn how to eat stuff from the ground. This is pre-Y2K, right? So we're in the prep of, like, if something happened, we know how to live off the land. We was heavy into that, yeah. So fast forward, years and years later, we see him getting sick and he passes away. So a year after he dies, we do a memorial, and it was at Kari Frazier's spot in the Eastern Market. One of the first people to ever bust out what everybody else is doing now. Kari Ben did that, right? You were already in Eastern Market, piping out the lofts and the warehouses and shit. It was a dope space. That was my first time ever in there.
Wow, man. Buddah took me back.
I did a poem in there.
Took me back.
Yeah, I did a poem for we was in there. You had Wasaba and the Blue Babies.
Yeah,
it was there. My children was there. My wife was there. Yup, and I did a poem that day, and it was like, it was a recording studio, right?
All right, man. All right, so finish the story and then I get
okay, so I just remember more worried about your studio equipment than anything that day because there was so many children and young folk in there, and it was just like very valuable shit everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, I hope these kids don't touch my man's shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember you being in there, orchestrating everything, being very professional, being polite, making things go on, setting the sound systems and shit was fired. The whole lab was dope. And I'm like, do he live here? And I'm just like, I had all these questions, but I was just there to do the poem. And did we eat that day?
Yeah, I don't know what the food was. Okay.
It was a whole vibe. I know that.
So, all right. Man, you took me back, and it's rare people take me back on the Detroit. It's different.
So that's when I first met you.
So, wow.
Yeah.
All right. So, Let's get it. Let's get hip right here. So first off, rest in peace, Weusi. Weusi, I even shout him out in my "If Detroit Were Heaven" song.
Oh yeah. That's
So
a story right there, my man.
Weusi was like what Buddah said. Like, so when you think about a lot of people that work in community around anti-violence work and so much more, like Weusi, just a really powerful, good dude. And his passing, like a couple other people's passing, like, yeah, I think about him often because just a good life, like one of the coolest dudes ever. So he was connected to Saba and the Blue Babies, and shout out Saba too. And Nadia, his wife, and when after his passing, Saba was like, I don't know what we're gonna do. We need to do something, and da 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 da. And that's when I was a partner in the 1440 studio space, which is almost like a moment in time of Detroit history, as what Buddah was saying. Like, I think, like, no frills. I think that some of the movement of Eastern Market coolness kind of connected to people coming to our parties we used to do at the 1440. We were just doing them because we needed rent parties, right? And it was a partnership between myself, Nadir, Joey Spina, hell of a guitar player, one of my favorite musicians ever, Davey G, Biba, Eric, like Manpower, man, so many different people, all in the 1440 in different types. We all kind of came together as like a rehearsal space, and we do events because we needed the rent party. So I was like, y'all need a space, we gonna do it here. And I got a sound system and we got everything else. We got a stage. Let's rock out and let's make it happen. And that's that event. But that's also a little bit more of the story of the 1440.
Okay, that too.
So when I tell people, like, being here in the hood, kind of like your story, bouncing around, like, I've had studios in other spaces.
Yeah.
This is the best space for me. I love being in my own neighborhood now.
Yeah. This is the neighborhood. You know, I think what I want to do is invest more now.
Yeah.
This area is almost like a blank canvas where we can probably put up anything and it'll work.
I love it.
Yeah, because it's like you right here by the first freeway ever built.
Yeah.
It goes all the way through. I think my cousin actually owns a space on the corner of Homer and Davidson.
Oh man, that's right over there.
Yeah,
that's right.
He used to work on mini bikes and do all that kind of stuff, sell them and all that.
It's a lot of mini bikes riding through our hood.
Yeah,
like, it's almost
that
like
part.
It's like a Philadelphia around motorbikes.
That's a whole culture.
Yeah,
I guarantee. Yep. But I remember him telling me, I forgot the number, but how much traffic comes through Davidson every day.
It's a lot, man.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
It would make sense to try to do some type of entrepreneurial spot at the same time, build the community off of that, because this area it slaps.
I love it, and yeah, always. So now I guess that brings us to this thing right here, the collard green cook-off.
Oh yeah.
All right. So leading up to like some of the outreach for who we needed, we had somebody in that point position. We needed to pivot. And my project manager and everybody that know, if you really know me, you know I'm always working with Suzanne. Suzanne like keeps stuff on target to like a drill sergeant and stuff. But we need Suzanne to make all this stuff come together.
Shout out to her. That's the homie.
So Suzanne was like, we got to pull this whole thing off. I was like, okay, conceptually, how do we make this happen? So I'm giving you even the story. So let's even rewind further back. My grandma Vel in Cleveland is extremely creative, and she pushes my creativity more than anybody else, like as like a client. So maybe in like 2012, when I'm going to Walsh College and she's asking me for like, give me some ideas that's creative. And I was like, damn, Grandma Vel, I don't know. Like, you know, she owns a Purple Oasis garden in Cleveland. If people know, it's near the Cleveland Clinic. And she's like, I need people to come out to something. And I was like, all right. I'm in my marketing class at the time. They got these ideas called like spoof websites. It was something around the beard movement when the San Francisco Giants won that first championship. And what they did was it was this beer company that sent a bunch of stuff and made this fake website, but it was still like with real facts. So like a fake website with real facts means like, it's like, this can't be that serious, but it was like all about beer technology and stuff. I'm like, you could do something like this for black people, but you call it like the Institute of Collard Greens. And then you got to, and then she was like, but we going to have to do something in real life to make it happen. And I was like, let's do a collard green cook-off. Now I know other people have done something like this, but not in the this method that we've applied it. So that was the idea came up then. This past year, I was like, let's continue doing this a lot of studio thing. And this series that we did after COVID-19, where we basically put the studio outside. Didn't raise enough money, but we did get one sponsor, Build Institute. Shout out to Regina Ann Campbell.
Oh, yeah.
And she committed to the collard green cook-off. So I was like, damn. So we got to pull off the collard green cook-off. And back to Suzanne being a taskmaster. It got to make sense to me, Kari. How does this make sense? So I was like, shit, how will it make sense? So then we sat, we brainstormed, we thought it through. We put somebody in a position, didn't get any chefs. So then I'm going through my mind of like, damn, who do I know? Let me reach out to my Rolodex, back to social capital.
Right.
I was like, let me reach out to Buddah. I was like, hey, Buddah, what you doing tomorrow? And he was like, man, I got some stuff. I'm like, yo, I need you to pull up. This gonna be big. It's the collard green cook-off. And I know you got to be able to cook collard greens because you a chef. And you was like, how do I fit this in my day and all of that? And that's my end of the story. Pick up.
Yeah, I tried to get out of that, man. I swear, because I think that day was my wedding anniversary or the day before or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we was basically like had plans on skipping out of here, right?
Yep.
So I was like, nah, and y'all like, all right, well, just you let us know.
And then I pressed them with the Kari press.
Y'all pressed me, and then it made sense the last time I spoke with you.
Mm-hmm.
It just clicked, like, yeah, let's do this. And my wife was with it too. She's like, hell yeah, why not? And so the dope part about that is the collard greens came already washed and clean, and it was the bomb. But the easy part was the recipe. I'm not even gonna lie. I already had because I got so much going on in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was working for the DMC years ago, they switched different companies, Sodexo, Marriott. One of these food companies used to come in and manage the kitchen space. It was no longer managed by the DMC. So we had contracted kitchen companies or culinary companies. So one of them was a company called Morrison. So we met some other black chefs. They came in, they was bringing their own different products and showing a different technique. So I come to work one day, and my buddy Darrell, one of the chefs, he like, man, taste this spinach right quick. So I taste the spinach, and it's like, the flavor is like out of control. I'm like, yo, what's going on? He like, my man from Morrison showed me how to make this, man. He showed me to mix this with that, and I did it and shit. And so I'm like, that's fire. So ever since then, I always made my spinach, my collard greens, my kale, everything green leafy veggies with this particular seasoning and how I do it. So when the collard green contest came in my lap, the first thing that came to my mind was like, everybody's going to do traditional collard greens, right? Maybe with smoked turkey, smoked ham hocks, whatever they're going to spruce it up. But it's still going to be boiled collard greens, I believe. In my mind, it's going to be who can get the best collard greens. When you think of collard greens, you think of they only cook one way culturally in the black community, right? So I'm like, culturally across the world, collard greens are made differently. So I know in the Caribbean, they kind of pan fry, and in Africa, callaloo and all that is sometimes sauteed to a crisp. So I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that seasoning I learned from a man from the DMC, but I'm going to pan fry them. I'm going to make them vegan. I'm going to do grapeseed oil and throw some sweet peppers and onions in there with it. So when I got the greens, it was just like, damn, I need a big-ass frying pan. But I made it happen. It was a lot of greens. But like I said, the best part, it was already washed and clean. I didn't know that. I ended up washing them, and I couldn't get no dirt. I'm like, I don't see no dirt or nothing. And then that's when I reached out. They're like, oh, no, they're already clean. I'm like, oh, they could have saved me some time. So, went to the lab and cut them up fine, too. Cut them up real small. Pan fried them, threw my herbs and stuff in there. And we pulled up, and the night I remember tasting them, I was thinking to myself, like, damn, this is really good.
Hilarious.
Yeah, this is good as hell. So, we get there. It was a dope day, man. It was very festive. One thing about me, I like if I'm being creative and I can be festive at the same time, that's a win-win. And then I end up winning. So that was I was a skeptic for a minute because the competition was heat. It was hot, man.
So people that know, and then shout out to Mike Leary hosting it. It's so funny.
Oh, yeah.
Mike came over and Mike was like, my man done won.
Hey, about 300 people walked up to me and said that. I said, damn, maybe I'm going to win it then.
Yeah, let me say that. It was a lot of people that came, and everything about that day was like wrong, but it was so right because it was supposed to be outside, but it stormed that day.
Yep.
So we had to change locations the day before, and the rain delay location wasn't like anything else, and people still came, like to the point where I was like, man, rain may have saved us because we'd have probably ran out of collard greens in like 20 minutes if
it would have been a beautiful day. Everybody would have
because
they was on them. I had elders in wheelchairs rolling up on me like squeezing my hand, saying, brother, you did your thing. And I'm like, really, auntie? They was praising me, man. And I thought about it because, that's just how I am.
Yeah.
At work, with cooking, I'm always going, I'm going to give it 120%. So it was regular to me, but at the same time, you still have that doubt sometimes, a little bit, that little voice, like maybe it's too much season. Maybe it's people ain't going to do the fried green. They might not.
Yeah.
And it was the total opposite.
I personally wanted it to be, because that's the thing. I love sports for everybody that knows. I'm using sports analogies. If you talk to me for 2 conversations, you get in a sports analogy. So I want to add like that little bit of competitive flair, but not make it like too competitive. But just adding that little mix, I think, makes things kind of fun.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so cool to see, like he said, like grandmas looking like how I look at the NBA playoffs or boxing or something. Like they were looking like, it was
facts.
It was an interesting dynamic.
It was the conversations and just the whole. It got very thick with culture up in there off these greens. And when you think about collard greens, you can't get no more cultural than that.
And then the media, you won.
That's right.
My homeboy Mike created the trophy, the Colleen, and that was actually named by Sterling. So
he tells me this months and months later. I run into him. He congratulates me, and I'm like, "Yo, the trophy was fire, this and that." He's like, "Hey, you know what? Let me tell you a little bit." And he broke it down. He came up with the name. I'm like, "Oh man, this make it even more dope."
So Sterling was like, so I called Mike when we was like, what we gonna get back to Suzanne? I mean, you gotta give him a trophy. I was like, man, we ain't gonna give him a regular trophy. This is Detroit is different. Yeah. So I hit up Mike and I was like, let's get a 3D statue. How we gonna do this? He was like, I don't know. I'm gonna draft the lady holding it. We gonna make it something like the logo. And he was like, I gotta do it a certain way. And then after he did it, I was like, man, what we gonna put it in? I was like, all right, we gotta go to Joann Fabrics, get like a football case or something, and put it in there. And Sterling said, well, what you gonna call it? I was like, I don't know, the trophy. He was like, no, like you got the Oscars, you got the Grammy.
Exactly.
And then me, Piper, and Sterling just talking. He was like, we gonna call it the Colleen. So
oh my God. It worked out, the Colleen. My sister's name is Colleen. And she called me from Atlanta and congratulated me on winning the Colleen. So yeah. That trophy's fire. It's sitting right in my front room. I got a crown on it too.
That's hilarious.
It looks so dope with the gold crown on top of the whole cake.
I can imagine. Like, yeah. So it was a good day. Like the media was like, I turned on, like people was calling me like, hey, my man is on the news with, I was like, for real?
I watched it, I think, later on that night somewhere. We went and hung out and celebrated, and it came on the news again.
Wow.
And we watched it. I'm like, oh yeah, that was dope.
Yeah, because I assume afterwards, what was the response afterwards? I know people probably still come up to you and may say something about it.
Yeah, a lot of people, since I spread a lot around the city, I was doing an event, I forgot where, And I guess who was there didn't know there was going to be food. And when they came up, they saw the logo. They like, Buddah. They're like, did you win the collard green contest last year? I was like, yeah. They like, oh, hell yeah. This food, I don't care what it is. I know it's about to be fire. I'm like, oh, man, you was there. They like, man, we was there. We spent like $30. Because, y'all, we was set, like, you got
So what happened is, like, okay, so you would buy some tickets. Because I paid everybody for being, it was like, okay, let's pay people for being in the contest. That way it's fair competition across the board. And you buy like a tasting ticket. And that gives you how much to taste.
Right.
So we're expanding the idea a little bit now this year. A couple things. First off, it's going to be 2 rounds, right? So 2 rounds. So
oh, wow.
The other thing is people was like, I want to vote. So it's going to be like the dunk contest, back to sports, where where it'll be like a big veil with your collard green ticket. You can vote. And it's still going to be judges.
Yeah. That was fire, man. We had the comedians there. A lot of celebrities was there.
Yeah.
The media, tons of people that I knew and tons of people I met that day. Like, I became, like, adopted in so many households that day, man.
Yeah. And
people was asking me, like, what did you do? What am I tasting? It has a hearty, meaty taste, but you say it's vegan?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, it's no meat at all plants. So.
And I didn't even get to try any. His was out fast, like.
Oh, yeah. I looked up. I had a line to the left of me, and I'm thinking, like, are they here just for me? Because it was some of the same people I had already. Yeah.
They was re-upping it.
Yeah. My pops was trying to get a container full before we fed everybody. Travis Peters was trying to get in on a container full. I'm like, nah, man, these is paid for, man. We feeding everybody in this line. And I think I fed just about everybody. And the people that was coming back for the third or fourth time, that's when we was running out.
Man.
We ran through, 50 pounds or 40 pounds of greens?
Yeah. It may have been 50. It was a lot of greens.
It was a lot. It was like, But I'm glad it was a lot because we fed a lot, hundreds and hundreds of people, man. And that was dope, and to hold that title in the city of Detroit, and beat out a couple other dope chefs. That's pretty dope. So this year, I'm looking forward to, like I said, I'm going to win again 2 more times.
Hilarious.
Yeah, that way I have 3 Collines, and then
and then you going to leave it to the field.
Yeah, it's a wrap after that. I don't want to keep doing that,
So this year, Buddha's grandfathered in. That's the other thing. He skips. It's almost like the play-in. So it's going to be 2 rounds, basically. You got the playoff round, and that'll be June 15th for the Juneteenth Jubilee. Dope. And then it will be August 15th, and that'll be the final round. And so it'll be 10 people that we still need to recruit. So I'm going to have Buddah actually cut the commercial for me helping to do this right after we do this. And so it'll be 10 chefs in the first round, Juneteenth, and that 10 will turn into 5. Whoever those 5 are, then take on Buddah. You'll get to taste some of Buddha's greens on June 15th, too. But you really get the real competition, and I'm sure he got some ideas in that mind. Especially now that after interviewing you and understanding your dynamics of your food travels.
I got to bring something because, when it comes to greens or just green leafy vegetables, you can get super multicultural.
Oh, man.
And mind you, where I work for people from Ethiopia, India, Cameroon, Germany, Switzerland. So they have so many ideas and they bring so many things to the table and stuff that they would like for me to, cook by them being in America.
Yeah.
They would like a taste of home, and I'm the only source of food to a certain point. So I've been collecting ideas and techniques, ever since actually the last couple, like 5, 6, 7 years.
So next year we gonna try to go regional. It's gonna be like
we got to.
It's gonna be more than just Detroit.
That's when you're gonna see who's who, and it's gonna get very competitive. Crazy. Which I look forward to if I'm still a part of it.
Oh yeah, because we definitely bringing Cleveland on board next year. So Detroit, Cleveland will have a runoff.
Cleveland dope, man. They had a dope vegan vibe years ago. Back when me and Wiyusi them was hanging tough. Yeah. That was my first time going to a restaurant that was totally vegetarian. Wow. And for sure there was some here in Detroit, but my first experience inside a vegetarian restaurant was in Cleveland.
So with all of this, now we getting to the end. Classic before the classic Detroit is different questions. If people want to get in contact with you, just book you for something, catering. How do they reach out? How do they connect?
They can definitely. Social media will probably be an easier way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but definitely email me. I check my emails on a regular. And
okay.
You can email me at buddahfoods.com. That's BUDDAH at BUDDAHfoods.com.
All right. So now our classic Detroit is different question. Very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
1980 Cutlass. I got it like in 94.
You had an 80 Cutlass?
1980 Cutlass. A little short. It was raggedier than sauerkraut.
Oh, it wasn't.
You had to get in
clean.
on. No, you had to
wasn't
get on the.
Clean. You had a cutty that wasn't clean in the 80.
This is in 94, so mine is like, 14 years old. Different colored doors. One door didn't open. No air conditioner, no windshields.
Where's the first place you went with it?
Wow. Took my grandma somewhere.
Wow, okay.
I remember because we didn't have a car. That was like the first car. That was the first car like the household. Mm-hmm. That's terrible. 80 Cutlass. And I had like a DuPont radio in there that used to bang. And I remember she needed to go, I don't know if it was Kmart on Plymouth Southfield Freeway back then or somewhere. It was some type of department store.
Man, you took me back. You said the Kmart on Plymouth and Southfield.
I think that was the closest one, I think, in the city, to be honest.
Before it was the church, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, so I used to take my grandma everywhere. She was the first person that, I just chauffeured around because she had shit to do.
All right. Yeah. That's what's up. Yeah. All right. You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks, Woodward and Jefferson. What 3 songs you playing?
Wow. That's a crazy question, bro. Because I'm an artist at heart. Like, my first love is music. Because I'm Pisces, too. You say it's okay, let me get the question again.
The end of the fireworks. They just finished up. You're at Woodward and Jefferson. You DJ, and what 3 songs you playing?
I know one of them gonna be the Gap Band.
Which one?
Man, what is the one damn. Can't think of the name.
So early in the morning.
I got
that song.
I gotta have that in there. And I don't know, gotta throw some Prince and Michael. Maybe both. Rock With You or something to keep the party going. And with Prince,
I know what song I would play, but I don't know what you're thinking.
From Prince?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I was a huge Prince fan. But I don't know. I think I'll probably go with something like maybe Pop Life.
I would play Let's Go Crazy, but I feel you.
Yeah, Let's Go Crazy would be perfect. Mm-hmm. But I would just mellow it out after the first 2. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't think Rock With You is kind of...
Rock With You is too smooth and mellow, ain't it?
That's what I think.
Right, yeah. I'm going to have to think on that one because I'm like a huge music fan. Like,
I got you.
My wife asked me, like, because she knows how much I love music, and she was like, if you was a DJ, what route would you go? And I'm like, I just play everything because I don't have a certain favorite genre. I just do it all. So I'm like, it'd probably be the vibe out of this world if I was to ever DJ something. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. DJ Buddah coming soon.
Right. Or the Vegan Gumbo guy. I just keep it that.
All right.
He on the wheels.
All right. It's like, hey, where my gumbo at?
Right. You get the gumbo and you get the dance.
So, last question. You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
Oh, after one Detroiter. I'll probably say James Clark. That's my father's father. Yeah, he's an entrepreneur. I get my entrepreneurial spirit from my father's side of the family. Okay. So my grandfather, his father was the first black man to own a construction company to demolition and build houses. He helped build the Belle Isle Fountain. He helped build multiple buildings that you see around the city to this day. He was an Army vet. You know, he owned a junkyard where he crushed and did metal, changed 18-wheel tires. They fixed trucks. They welded stuff together. Like my father and that side of the family, they all they know how to fix stuff. Like from welding to construction, they do it all. Build houses, demolish houses. They get that they heavy on that part. So, but I hear so many great stories about him, and I'm like, damn, low key, he did a lot. So my auntie told me one day, not too long ago, that he did something for the city of Detroit, and the check they cut for him was $90,000. She said this was like 1970 something. And he did it. He hired a guy to do it with him. So what it was, they put both their names on the check. But I think only my grandfather could cash because he only had like a real bank account. So she said she showed up to get the check, and the guy's there trying to get the check too. And she called her. She said, I called her dad and was like, and she said he told him, get that check and don't let that motherfucker touch it.
Hilarious.
Yeah, so he pulled up and gave my man his half or whatever the cut was. It wasn't half, but he got something off that. But that was a lot of money, like in the 70s. Just to do one project.
You got that right.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money today.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I hear so many here. Yeah, I got a chance to meet him right before he passed, but he was a very interesting guy. I heard that one day my dad was over there in his house when he was kind of bedridden. They were trying to clean up around him. They wanted to dump this trash can that was on the side of his bed full of tissue and shit. And he's like, I'm about to throw this out, bro. He's like, don't touch shit in here. Stop touching stuff. Stop it. And he said, well, I'm going to get this trash out of here. He's like, don't, just get out. You do that stuff, but don't touch that. Leave that alone. And come to find out it was $60,000 cash in there. And he just had it on the side of his bed, man, for some reason.
Wow.
Yeah. And he said, like, I was finna throw it, too. I was just going to dump it without looking. But I asked him, like, you want me to get rid of this? And he kept telling me no. He said, come to find out that's what it was. He just was keeping the cash on hand. That's how he was.
That's definitely old school right there.
Yeah, he was all right, man, when I met him. But I heard in the junkyard, my brother and my cousin used to live there as teenagers. And in that junkyard was hundreds and hundreds of guns because my grandpa was an Army vet. And late at night, they would shoot, you know, cans and shit and shoot up the cars that was in there and rats and all that kind of stuff. And it was rigged, too. It was like a booby trap type of spot because he was very, like, mechanical. So he had stuff set up where if you was in a certain area, you would get shot or you would get a warning shot. That's how it was rigged. But they knew the spots. But one day he was in there, I guess, early and seen bullet holes everywhere and asked them, y'all been playing with these guns while I'm not here? And they was like, nah. So they said he took his bulldozer and laid all the guns out in the yard and rolled over them back and forth. So they weren't using them.
Wow.
They're like, man, these was Tommy guns, antique guns, rifles, handguns, all stuff he collected from around the world. And he destroyed them to keep them from shooting them and the police coming up in there and finding them, and then he get in trouble.
I was a smart man at that
point.
Yeah.
They couldn't understand it. They're like, oh, he just murdered all these guns.
Yeah, that's a smart man.
Yeah, so I think I would name, it'd be James Clark Street or something. He was a very interesting guy the short time I met him. And then all the entrepreneur stories I hear about him and the things he did and bought and how much money he used to make. I thought that was pretty dope.
That is big, man.
Yeah.
That is big. Well, it's been a long time coming, and it definitely was worth the wait, man.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. We moving, man. I'm always like, this one I think I get to rest. Somebody a call or send a message like, you available this day? I'm like, yep. Yeah. I'm always ready.
Respect. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, bro. I'm glad we're here. So.
Oh, yeah, and this collard green cook-off thing, thank you so much for being part of that as well.
You're welcome. Yeah.
All right.
Peace out.
Peace. All right, that's a Detroit is Different, but I want you to do this quick.
Detroit is Different is where you get information, artistry, history, music, and even comedy. Detroit is Different, a home for the culture of Detroit. Visit online at DetroitisDifferent.com today.